data. There are government workers across the state that are abusing their access to your sensitive personal information.
And it happened to dozens of people right here in the Tampa Bay area last year, but half of them never found out. 10 Investigates Jenna Bourne found almost all of these government employees got a slap on the wrist for their abuse of access.
It's not unusual to look up an ex on social media. People get curious about what their former romantic partners look like now and what they're up to. But what happened to Eva Kennedy was different.
It's obviously misuse of access.
Kennedy shared these glamour shots with us from the late 1980s. This was around the time she was dating her ex-boyfriend, Leonard Willis. Decades later, her ex looked her up, not on Facebook, but in a confidential government database, Florida's Driver and Vehicle Information Database, known as DAVID. It's meant to be a tool for government agencies and law enforcement officers to confirm information about Florida drivers, not a tool for romantic snooping.
It's kind of odd that he would just seek me out after 20-something years to find out where I'm at and what I'm doing.
She wasn't the only one Leonard Willis admitted to looking up on David while on the job here at the Florida Department of Revenue in Jacksonville. In a recorded interview with investigators, he says he also searched his ex-wife looking for driver's license photos.
I wondered how a couple of people, my ex-wife, one, and a woman that I dated prior to her, I wonder how they aged, basically, is what it was.
But Willis had access to more than just driver's license photos. David gives users access to every Florida driver's license number, address, signature, medical and disability information, social security number, date of birth, vehicle information, and emergency contact info.
It's information that obviously could be used in identity theft, or it could be used for some nefarious purpose if it was leaked out.
These reports show dozens of Tampa Bay government workers got caught misusing David last year. With the exception of 3 people, they all got verbal or written counseling, or no discipline at all. Sometimes their access to some parts of David, like emergency contact information, was temporarily revoked. Last year in Tampa Bay, only 1 person got suspended for 2 days. A Temple Terrace dispatcher who used David to find addresses for Christmas cards. 1 person got fired. Port Richey Police dispatcher Christian Mercado. Police reports say Mercado used David to look up a teen girl he was talking to and her parents. Mercado didn't respond when we asked for an interview. In Lakeland, police officer Christopher Hu resigned after he was accused of searching David for personal information on multiple young women he met while out on police calls.
He can tender his resignation up until the point that I would have terminated him, but he knew that was inevitable. And that's notated in the file.
So you would have fired him if he hadn't resigned, is what you're saying?
Absolutely.
One of those women told police she had a sexual encounter with Hu after meeting him on duty. Another was a known prostitute, according to a Lakeland police report. Hu declined our request for an interview through his attorney.
Here at this agency, we are not going to tolerate it.
Hu is now being criminally prosecuted for misusing David, and that's rare. Despite agencies reporting more than 900 times since 2015 that their employees misused David, state attorneys' offices in Florida tell us they only know of 1 other person who was criminally charged during that time, another officer here in Tampa Bay. Florida Fish and Wildlife Officer Ryan Butler from Temple Terrace. He's in prison after pleading guilty to using information from David to track his ex-girlfriend and set multiple fires to her and her friend's property in 2015. And if someone was looking you up for no good reason, you'd probably want to know about it. But we found that half the people whose information was accessed inappropriately by law enforcement in Tampa Bay last year were never notified. And here's the thing. Florida law gives these agencies an out when it comes to notifying victims of a data breach. An agency doesn't have to notify you if it reasonably determines that the breach has not and will not likely result in identity theft or any other financial harm.
If they don't notify them, most people may not ever know this has occurred. I've had cases before where people just thought it was some strange coincidence and said, why is this person always where I'm going? How does he know I'm here? How does he know what kind of car I drive?
The Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, or HSMV, oversees David. They knew David misuse was a problem years ago, so they started requiring more audits and that government workers who use David sign acknowledgments that they could face civil and criminal penalties for misuse. The problem is the state has no idea if those changes are working, because they aren't tracking how often people are misusing David. Don't get me wrong, agencies are required to report David misuse to the HSMV, but the HSMV doesn't use those reports to track frequency of misuse. They just review the information and take action if needed. We repeatedly asked for an interview with HSMV Executive Director Terry Rhodes about this, but she wouldn't talk to us.
People just are invading privacy of other people.
Eva Kennedy says she just wants people who abuse their access to face consequences.
Maybe they need to have a different job if they can't handle having that level of security.
If you suspect David misuse, you can submit a complaint to the HSMV. You can also submit a public records request for David searches of your name. You can find more info on how to do that on 10tampabay.com.
Let's take a deeper dive into what the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles does to prevent misuse. Each agency who gets access to David has to sign an annual agreement to follow all rules and regulations, since your personal information is protected under the Federal Driver Privacy and Protection Act as well as Florida law. Each agency must do quarterly quality control reviews, and the HSMV does field audits at law enforcement agencies every 2 years.